Does Adrien deserve better? Does Cat Noir deserve better? Or does Adrien need to step up to the plate and become a leader? Hey everyone, welcome to AnimePuffz. I'm your host Wiley, and today I'm going to be talking about whether or not Adrien deserves better, if he's just skating by, or if he is actually showcasing some talent and some, notable skills, but they just aren't being recognized. So if you like this video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Share if you care. Let's get to it. Okay, first I want to start by breaking down who Adrien is. So who is Adrien at his core? Adrien is a smart, straight-A student. Like, he's very intelligent. He is very supportive when it comes to his friends. Adrien seems to be a genuinely nice person, but also he's been sheltered for most of his life. So once he finally does get friends, he protects them as much as he can. Although sometimes Adrien does battle with maintaining his friendships and holding people accountable. And it's been shown in this show several times. So let's start off by listing some character traits for Adrien, like who is Adrien? So Adrien is this kind, gentle spirit who just wants to get along with everyone, maintain as many friends as possible. He tries his best to be supportive. Oftentimes he tries to stand up and do what's right, although sometimes things do fall through the cracks. And he just so happens to be a model and Marinette's crush. Now let's talk about where Adrien is from. So Adrien is a popular Parisian model.
Radiant, carefree, dreamy, Adrien, the fragrance.
And his dad is a fashion designer. However, his dad is very closed off and his mom basically disappeared and Adrien does not know what happened to her. Little does he know, his dad has been holding his mom, who is in a suspended state, in his house. And Adrien just doesn't know where she went. He just thinks that she got sick and he doesn't know where she is. So he is like really disconnected from his maternal figure in his life. But despite his mother, Emily, being in his life, Adrien kind of hinted that even before Emily went missing or before she became sick, Adrien's dad has always been kind of stoic and, no fun. It leads me to question the type of mother that Emily was to allow Adrien Agreste, her husband, to mistreat their son in such a manner that he's mistreating him. Adrien has been homeschooled his whole entire life up until Master Fu gave him the cat Miraculous. Adrien's only friend was Chloe, and the amount of extreme behavior that Adrien Agreste displays is quite alarming. So it just makes me wonder, at what point did Gabriel start acting this way, or has he always been this way? Adrien is constantly being left alone by himself in the house, or he is just left to the supervision of his bodyguard and Gabriel's assistant, Natalie. Adrien typically just goes out to fencing practice, martial arts practice, he goes to photo shoots, and then he comes home. So he doesn't have much of a social life. And in my opinion, it doesn't even seem to me that Adrien even likes modeling. So what place did Emily have in Adrien's life? Like, was she abused by Gabriel too, or did she participate? Like, did she willingly allow Gabriel to mistreat Adrien in front of her? What was going down? Was Emily the one helping, Adrien during his homeschooling? Like, what type of relationship did they have? And Gabriel and Adrien clearly have a really strained relationship. It's shown in Miraculous that Gabriel is extremely cold, he's distant, he is very manipulative, he neglects Adrien. Like, there's often times where Gabriel will not allow Adrien to go outside and be with his friends, but instead Gabriel wants Adrien to wait for him. And oftentimes Gabriel has to cancel on their dinners or on their lunch. And Gabriel still expects for Adrien to miss out on being with his friends. And it's shown multiple times that Gabriel is willing to do anything to bring back his wife. And it just appears that he's getting corrupted by this Miraculous, or he was already corrupt and he's just using the Miraculous to heighten his power and to heighten the amount of destruction that he does for other people. He's risked Adrien's life multiple times. One example being the gorilla episode, when Gabriel, aka Hawkmoth, akumatized Adrien's bodyguard into being a gorilla, and the gorilla grabs up Adrien, and Adrien basically jumps out of the gorilla's arms while they're on top of a building, which could have been to his death. At the end of the day, Gabriel did allow Adrien to be saved by Ladybug. Why was he that close to risking his son's life? Just to prove that his son had the cat Miraculous? So he's gonna risk his son's life in order to prove a point that will awaken his wife but kill his son in the process? One of Gabriel's worst moments was in that Chat Blanc episode when he was willing to akumatize his son in order to capture Ladybug's Miraculous, which caused a ton of trauma to Adrien / Cat Noir. So Adrien Agreste does not care what length he goes. In the beginning, it seemed that, you know, Gabriel Agreste was distant, but he still had some hope towards building a relationship and a connection with his son, and he kind of cared about him. But as time goes by, we see him lose his humanity, and he is willing to use Adrien as a pawn. So Adrien has to suffer from all of this, and he doesn't really have anyone who he can talk to about this stuff. So in short, does Adrien deserve better from his dad? Absolutely. And I think that Adrien is kind of lucky in a kind of sick, twisted way to have Natalie there, because Natalie, Gabriel's assistant, actually kind of brings some more humanity back to Gabriel, despite her joining him. And she really does seem to care for Adrien, and she softens Gabriel a little bit, and she's always there for Adrien. Even though in that Chat Blanc episode, she kind of like told on him, like told that he was Cat Noir. But she still does care about him, but she does have her duties that she has to fulfill for Hawkmoth. And her, you know, emotional feelings toward Hawkmoth are corrupting kind of her relationship with Adrien. It kind of adds to it. She feels more affection for him, and she's kind of like a motherly figure. But also she, you know, wants to be closer to Hawkmoth, so she's going to do anything necessary to get there. So it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. Now let's talk about his skills and qualifications. He knows like a variety of martial arts, kung fu, karate, and capoeira. So he's really sufficient. He's also a fencer. He knows how to speak Chinese, English, French, and he also knows a little bit of Japanese, as we saw in the AnimePuffz episode. And before anyone even says it, like, Adrien and the whole class went to New York City, where they spoke to New York natives. So most likely they were speaking English to each other. But this could be disproven, but most likely they were speaking English to each other. And contrary to popular belief, Adrien seems to be very clever. He oftentimes tells Ladybug where the Akuma is. He oftentimes tells her what she can and can't do. And he often tells her which plans will and won't work. And he always like gives her like that secondary reassurance, or like she'll come up with the plan and then he'll tell her like a better way of executing the plan. This has happened several times. And he also is a muscle in a lot of situations. Like there's been multiple times where he's had to fight against like knights. He's had to fight against like a whole bunch of like law enforcement, like in the Metal Dictator episode and in the Dark Blade episode.
That was a nice one.
He fends off, you know, a lot of, you know, villains and a lot of minions, while Ladybug is either transforming into Ladybug or Marinette is transforming into Ladybug, or in order for Marinette / Ladybug to figure out a plan. There's also times where he is the physical shield for her, like in that Dark Cupid episode he shields her, in that Timebreaker episode he shields her. He shielded her from the Akuma in the Chat Blanc episode. So it's common for him to shield her. Like he doesn't hesitate to do so. And he's also even shielded Luca in that Desperado episode. So he's willing to put his body at risk to save his friends. And he's very talented at fencing. So far, it just seems like in battle, the only person who's really able to like really defeat him is Kagami. But typically, whenever a villain like defeats him in like hand-to-hand combat, it's something silly. It's like he's not taking it serious, which is kind of one of Adrien's downfalls. Like when he is in his civilian form, he takes things very seriously. He is very skilled and very structured, but when it comes to his superhero form, he's more unhinged and free-spirited, which sometimes works in a sense because it decreases the amount of tension when Ladybug and Cat Noir are fighting. But on the opposite end, it often leads to little mistakes that can basically like ruin the whole entire plan or can risk someone's safety. So it's like a plus and a minus. Now, let's talk about whether or not Ladybug and Cat Noir are equals. In the Story Heart Origins episodes, Part 1 and Part 2, Ladybug's powers seem to be equal to Cat Noir's powers. They're both equally matched. Ladybug and Cat Noir's powers together can bring back a life. And they were pretty much so equal in the first season, although Cat Noir was pretty much so goofy, but he just seemed to be more useful in Season 1 and Season 2. And he's always been willing to follow her. Things did get a little gray or like a little bit on the downside in the second season when Cat Noir began to question why he should always follow Ladybug, but yet he never really put into motion his leadership skills. But it just seemed like they were equally matched, just that Ladybug is more level-headed, whereas Cat Noir is just free. He doesn't have good control over his powers because I think he just gets overly excited. And Ladybug and Cat Noir often did have banter between the two of them about who was the leader, but they were also be like bantered to counterbalance that, and they would say that they were equals and that they were a team. However, somewhere along the line in season 2 and especially in season 3, the equality soon started to fade, and Cat Noir kind of became Ladybug's sidekick in a sense. And Cat Noir did have that brief moment in season 2 where he started to doubt Ladybug. It began to really happen after that opening episode of season 2, The Collector, where Ladybug told Cat Noir that she thought that his dad may have been Hawkmoth. And then more and more he began to act like, why should he listen to her? Even after that was kind of disproven, even though we know that it's real. They kind of just brushed that to the side and just accepted that Gabriel may not be Hawkmoth when we know that he is. They should have just delved like a little bit deeper. They were like easily fooled by that, but Gabriel kind of did have a good plan. But I feel like the two of them, Ladybug and Cat Noir, should have known better a little bit, but they'll figure it out. I personally just feel like they are busy, they're both stressed out, so to accept that Gabriel is Hawkmoth would just take things to another level in which they cannot handle things. So they just decided to just brush it off. They were willing to take any excuse as to why Gabriel wasn't Hawkmoth. But deep down inside, they know, in my opinion. In season 2, the more, you know, Ladybug began to bring in new people, the more she began to spend more time with, you know, Master Fu, the more Cat Noir started to notice this, and he started to feel, you know, distant from her and started to mistrust her, up until Ladybug actually lets Master Fu know what's happening, and Master Fu has a conversation with Cat Noir. I don't exactly know why Fu didn't spend more time with Adrien, but it is questionable to me. The way I can see it in one sense is that maybe, you know, Fu kind of felt that Marinette needed him a bit more. Marinette doesn't really have, again, any ties to her culture. She kind of lacks self-confidence. Well, she lacks self-confidence. So she is very smart, but she always second guesses herself. But she's immensely talented. But also in a sense, she's willing to work to meet her goals. Even though after season 3, she kind of goes haywire and things just get so messy with her. But something special was there. And then when it comes to Adrien, like, ding ding ding, like his dad is a supervillain. And although I kind of feel like the writers didn't want to put that in there, that would have kind of ended the story really quickly or abruptly had Master Fu spent more time with Adrien in the beginning. But Adrien definitely, you know, needed some type of like parental guidance, because his mom is not there, his dad is not there, Natalie is sometimes there but she's working with his dad, and there's just certain boundaries that she can't cross, so he needed someone. So it's kind of unfortunate that Adrien had no one. And then in the show, Master Fu teaches, you know, Marinette how to make concoctions, like how to make potions. He gives her life advice. He reinforces her self-confidence. Like, he just does all these great things for her, but Adrien never really had that. So, of course, he, you know, second guesses himself. Of course, he doesn't know how to interact with other people because he's been so sheltered. Of course, when everyone's insulting him, he's going to doubt himself. And things get worse sometimes when you doubt yourself. Like, to doubt oneself and then to have the world pointing a finger and laughing, or reinforcing those negative feelings that one has for oneself, is a heavy burden to swallow, and sometimes it makes things worse. So I can understand why Adrien makes so many mistakes. Not only is it the villains laughing at him, even sometimes the heroes. Like, I know that Adrien can take a good joke and Cat Noir can take a good joke, but at some point in time, all of that must be heavy. Like, if no one's taking him seriously and everyone's always waiting for Ladybug. And again, in the first season, it seemed like Ladybug and Cat Noir were equals and they trusted each other. Season 2, I felt like Adrien kind of second-guessed and doubted Ladybug a bit, because she was often leading and she was often like keeping secrets from him. But over time, he slowly but surely learned how to trust her again and like invest his whole entire self in her. Like, he was willing to sacrifice his own life or risk his own life because he trusted her that much. And he does it constantly, like over and over and over again. He'll follow her to the end of the earth. And for her in the beginning, it seemed like she really trusted him. And she would really listen to his advice. And his advice was actually what made her want to continue being Ladybug in her down moments. Even in season 3, when she made that big mistake with Master Fu, where she basically got him discovered by Hawkmoth, he still comforted her. He still, you know, was there for her. And let her know that everyone makes mistakes and he was there to move forward with her. But it just feels like everyone's losing faith in Cat. But one thing I will say about Cat is that although I do see the potential in him, like, it's there. Like, Adrien is extremely skilled. He has friends now. He has a support system with his friends. He's already proven that he's smart and he can come up with battle strategies. Why hasn't he? A good part about being a leader is knowing when to lead and knowing when to follow. At what point is he going to step up and say something? He can't get mad at Ladybug always controlling everything and taking the lead and taking the credit when he's just always support. At what point does he make a plan? At what point does he take himself seriously and, you know, really focuses on making less mistakes? At what point does he allow his kung fu to really, or his martial arts to really take center and not just be a joke? At what point does he ask Ladybug to support him? Being a leader is knowing when to take lead, or instead of waiting for opportunities to present themselves, sometimes a leader has to make those opportunities for themselves, and he has yet to do so. And the one time that Ladybug allowed him to take lead, he ruined everything because he didn't tell the truth. He didn't trust his better judgment. Being a leader means that the person in charge is responsible for the whole team. I held Marinette/Ladybug accountable for her leadership skills in the United Heroes movie. I said that being a part of a team or leading a team, the person in charge takes the brunt of the praise, but they also take the brunt of the backlash. So in leaving Paris, Ladybug should have set systems in place for someone else to protect Paris if she knew that Cat Noir wasn't capable of doing it. He hasn't shown that he's fully capable of doing so. He's talented and he's supported, but he hasn't shown, that he can step up to the plate just yet. So why leave him in charge of the city of Paris knowing that he's destroyed things before, or things haven't gone right before? That was her fault for doing so. And then it's Cat's fault for being fearful that she was going to get upset with him if he told her the truth. Sometimes being a leader is stepping up and taking accountability again. And sometimes being a leader and a true hero is standing up and being honest, even when it isn't the easiest thing to do. And he didn't do that. He lied to her. So he has to be held accountable. And then also, he's made so many mistakes in the past that once he finally makes a mistake that's not really his fault or was slightly out of his control, everyone adds all the wrong things that he's done up together along with the mistake. So it just looks like everything that he does is a failure. That is bad on the people who are judging him and not giving him grace this part. But it's also a reflection of the things that he's done. That's a reflection of his portfolio, and he has to be the one to change that. But I honestly think that Cat's kindness and his patience does amount to something. Ultimately, when it comes to Cat, I think when he's good, he's good. When he's bad, he's bad. He has to find some level of middle ground. And he has to just learn how to control himself. He has one of the most dangerous powers there is. So he has to learn how to control it. And I think that it's possible for him to learn. Now, what I will say, though, is that when it comes to Cat Noir, all that verbal, abuse is not necessary. He could be written better. He could be written to lead, because feminism is equality, so both Ladybug and Cat Noir should be able to lead sometimes, and that will also show Marinette in a positive light, that she's able to cooperate and listen to others. All in all, although I have to hold Cat accountable for the things that he's done, I will say that for me, he's different from Marinette because he learns from his mistake. It's he makes mistakes, but then he moves on. With her, she makes the same repeated mistakes with the same people, so it's hard to feel sympathy for her, and it's hard to give her grace because she's so cocky and stubborn. Whereas with him, he admits when he's wrong. He knew he was wrong in the Bubbler episode for not transforming. He learned from that. He knew he was wrong for taking the Snake Miraculous when it was supposed to be for Luca, and kind of lying and manipulating that whole situation, but he learns over time. It took him a long time and a lot of tries to learn, but he does learn. And then he could have killed Aeon had she been a real person. But to me, that wasn't his fault, but he has to know the right time when to call for his cataclysm, because that could have ended very badly. And at the end of the day, if someone is hurt, does it really matter whose fault it is? Someone's hurt, they're gone. So there would have been no excuses at that point in time. Cat Noir's main problem / Adrien's main problems are just being in denial about his father. He's kind of unlucky at love because he's causing problems for himself. He's been sheltered his whole life, but at what point does he notice the effects that he's having on people and having on women? He's kind of although he's not intending to, he's being a playboy. He needs to own up to the fact that he doesn't have feelings for Kagami. Or if he does, let that stuff with Ladybug go and move on. And stop mistreating an innocent person. That's not fair. And he didn't like it when it was done to him. This show often contradicts itself, and the characters on the show contradict themselves, but it's Cat even said in the Glaciator episode that it's not right to play with someone's emotions, but yet he does the same thing to Ladybug by going back and forth and trying to win her over. He's doing it to Marinette by being romantic with her, knowing that everything that he had planned was meant for Ladybug, and sharing his little love stories with Ladybug is why are you having these conversations with her? She might be your friend, but you don't want to give her mixed signals, because someone can interpret the sweet things that he does as being romantic, or him trying to get over Ladybug. It's just it's mixed signals. And he has yet to really let Chloe know that he's not feeling her. He has yet to establish his boundaries with her and to tell her to stop jumping on him and kissing on him. He just goes along for the ride. And he barely holds people in his life accountable, and that's also an issue as well. Like, Chloe shouldn't have been able to get away with what she said to Marinette. So he has a hard time holding Chloe accountable, and he excuses her because she's his friend, or his first friend, but at what point does he get over that? Right is right, wrong is wrong, even though sometimes there is a gray area. With all that being said, I think that Cat has some notable feats. One of his most notable moments for me was convincing Ladybug to remain Ladybug and to keep her Kwame in the Stoneheart Origins episode.
You move aside and let the pros do their thing. You've already failed once.
He's right, you know. If I'd captured Stoneheart Sakuma the first time around, none of this would have happened. I knew I wasn't the right one for this job.
No, he's wrong, because without you, she'd no longer be here. And because without us, they won't make it. And we'll prove that to them. Trust me on this.
Comforting Ladybug in that Miracle Queen episode and letting her know that everything that went wrong wasn't her fault. He held it down in that Dark Blade episode. He held it down in that Melodictator episode. And oftentimes, Cat Noir comes through in the clutch. So he's defense, he buys her time, he corrects Ladybug's plans. Sometimes his skills and abilities are useful, like he knows Morse code. He can see in the dark, which is really useful in the Stormy Weather episode. And oftentimes, it's just the little things. Like, there's often times where the comatized object is about to fall, Cat Noir catches it. Like, he does a lot of good things. And he saved Aya's life multiple times. Like, she almost got literally hit by a car. Like, a car was, like, literally, like, thrown at her. And he saved her. So there's multiple times where he does good things. But he also does have his bad moments, which is just, like, due to his silly nature. He has to learn that there's a time when to play and there's a time to be serious. And I don't think that he knows that yet. Now, let's briefly talk about Adrien's highlight moments. So for me, some of Adrien's highlight moments was in the Despair Bear episode where he held Chloe responsible for her actions. In the Ladybug episode where he defended Marinette, kind of like bringing out his dark side to protect her. When he was willing to translate for Marinette in that Kung Fu episode, that was very sweet. How much he cared for Kagami in the Anna Maestro episode. Like, there's so many good Adrien moments. This is like a Cat Noir and Adrien moment when Cat Noir / Adrien tried to calm down Lila and comfort her and try to deakumatize her that way. That was cool. And that would have most likely been one of the first times ever that we've seen someone like really just calm down and just... I wonder if it was possible for Lila in that moment to just calm down and just deakumatize herself. Like, what happens when the akumatized victims are no longer angry in the process? Another notable moment was when Adrien tried to remove the gum off of Marinette's seat. That was sweet. Of course, the umbrella scene. When Adrien tried to protect Marinette, tried to protect Santa Claus from Ladybug. Not celebrating Chloe leaving in Melodictator. Because deep down inside, I can tell that he cares for her. He just has to hold her accountable. It's like either he's going to hold her accountable in hopes that she'll change and become a better person, or he's going to try to protect their friendship and allow her to become this despicable person and mistreat everyone. So it's like, that's kind of selfish, and that kind of is why Adrien is not ready to be a leader. Like, is he going to choose like his own self-interest and his own comfort, or saving civilians? Because Chloe leads to a lot of akumatizations, and she also leads to just people feeling crappy in general. She mistreats a lot of people, so at what point is he going to stand up to her? If we can't stand up against the people that we love, how are we going to be superheroes? Or if one can't stand up against people that they love, or tell people that they love the truth, how can they tell the villains the truth? Or how can they hold the villains accountable? What I noticed about Adrien is that he does not like conflict. And that's a problem, because in order to acquire peace, sometimes conflict is necessary. And that does not mean that you all go out and do crazy things. Please don't do that. So, yeah. But sometimes in acquiring peace, conflict is necessary, and he has to understand that. So all in all, I think Adrien is qualified to be a leader, and I think that he does deserve better. Okay, so for starters, I think that Adrien deserves better absolutely from his dad, like, no questions asked. Like, his dad is a creepy weirdo, and he neglects him, so Adrien absolutely deserves better from his dad. Adrien deserves better from Fu. Fu should have fostered a sense of support and stability in Adrien, and he didn't do so. So how was Adrien ever supposed to get better? Like, Adrien was completely relying upon himself to become better. And he definitely cannot rely on Ladybug because she judges him. So Fu would have been unbiased in that situation and could have helped Adrien. But I kind of understand why they didn't go that route. Adrien deserves better when it comes to being a partner. Like, yes, he makes mistakes, but normally he amends for them. But he does need to take things more seriously because a lot of his mistakes can be avoided and they're very silly. So he needs to really be responsible. But the talent is definitely there. He comes through in the clutch all the time. I can't take that away from him. He is an amazing, he's an amazing sidekick. He's just not ready to be a hero or a leader yet. Because leaders make opportunities for themselves. Now, as for his relationship with Ladybug, she needs to stop leading him on. He needs to stop pushing forward. If she's not going to reciprocate his feelings, like, he needs to back off a little bit. and respect her boundaries. Like, that's not okay for him to continuously invade it and put pressure on her. Not okay. Although I do love them together, but... And lastly, let's talk about love for a brief moment. I think that Adrien deserves better from Marinette. He does not deserve to have anyone violate his personal privacy. I keep saying personal privacy. He does not deserve to have anyone violate his privacy. She goes too far all the time by following him into the boys' bathroom, going through his locker and stealing his phone, going into his house and sniffing his pillow and being creepy and invading his house. Like, he does not deserve that. He deserves a true friend who's not going to spy on him, or a love interest who's not going to do those things to him. Like, he already has issues with his dad being controlling. Marinette doesn't need to add to that. And I think that he just deserves better from society in general. Like, he's a model, yes, but he's been going to this school for how long? And everyone just follows behind him, takes pictures of him without his permission, invades his personal space, is always hugging on him, asking him for autographs. Like, leave the boy alone and let him live. I think that the weight of the world is also on his shoulders as well, because the only refuge that he gets is by escaping into work. By joining all these clubs, that must be a lot for him to handle. Like, the photo shoots, all the clubs. It's a lot. But ultimately, I do like his friend group. Ivan, Kim, Max, Nino, they all seem very supportive. So I love that about them. He gives them like a necessary peace of mind. But one thing that he could do is treat Kagami better. He needs to learn. I personally feel like for some people, like, empathy is ingrained within them, as a part of who they are, is in their heart and in their souls. Whereas with other people, they have to learn it. While Adrien seems to develop quick bonds with people and he seems to really care about people, he is not taking into account Kagami's feelings. Like, she shouldn't have to be his side order. Or if he doesn't have feelings for her, let her know. It's just him not wanting to step up to the plate and let her know the truth because he's too scared to. He does not like conflict. He never stands up against anyone. Like, we saw brief moments of him doing it or trying to stand up for himself in season 1, but in season 2 it was kind of there, kind of not. It kind of faded away. Season 3 it's not there. He just seemed like a pawn and he just listened to what everyone else has to say. He just doesn't like conflict. Disliking conflict is not necessarily a bad thing, but again, in order to acquire peace, one must sometimes get into conflict to establish that peace and to maintain that peace. And he has yet to do so. If he can't even tell this girl that he's not having feelings for her, if it makes him discomforted, what happens when he's like defending Paris or something and he feels discomforted? Like, he needs to brush his own personal feelings aside and really care for Kagami and cater to her feelings. It's not fair to lead her on like that. I personally do still think that Adrien has feelings for Kagami, but I think that he's so obsessed with Ladybug that he's not even paying attention to Kagami. It's like Kagami's like his third choice. It's like it's Ladybug, Marinette, Kagami, Lila, and then Chloe would be like his last choice on Earth. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair. Now let's discuss the writing for a brief moment. I think that Adrien has fallen off. He is in character decline. He was like a really great character in the beginning. In season 1, he really developed, and he was coming into his own and had the potential to possibly one day be a leader and make plans of his own, but the writers kind of forfeited that idea in order to establish Marinette higher than him. In season 2, he challenged that hierarchy, but it got too real for him. The writers made things get too real for him, which was, in my opinion, understandable. But as time progresses, like, he still doesn't stand up for himself. I don't know, I'm developing this deep theory that maybe Adrien doesn't step up, or maybe Cat Noir doesn't step up, because in stepping up, that would mean that one day he would have to face Hawkmoth on his own, or be the one to be the leader facing Hawkmoth. And for that to be his dad, his world would come crashing down like we saw in Chat Blanc. But that's just a theory. But yeah, so it's kind of like Adrien isn't just character decline. Season 2, he starts to question his place. It was okay writing at that point in time. Season 3, he doesn't question anything. He just does whatever she tells him, Ladybug tells him to do. So it's just character decline. And then Adrien, on the other hand, he becomes less of this character who tries to create balance and supports his friends, and he becomes more so of a character who's just there. He's just a pretty face, and he's just Marinette's love interest. He starts to lack more and more character development. He just becomes flat, and he starts to repeat the same lines over and over and over again, like we saw in the United Heroes episode. It became worse. So he's definitely on character decline. They gotta fix that. But yeah, he deserves to be written better. Like, even if he's not going to be the leader, make him a damn good sidekick. But it's just like, not good. And then it's also like, what does Adrien want? Like, Marinette / Ladybug is driven to seek justice, even though sometimes her justice comes out very corrupted. And she wants to seek popularity and she wants to basically be liked and have love, because I feel like her dad puts pressure on her. When it comes to Cat Noir / Adrien, what does he want really? I know that he wants to have a bond with his father and he misses his mother, but what else does he want outside of his freedom? Is it just the freedom? Like, he has no goals and no ambitions. If he wanted to be a leader, we need to see that more, and it's not written there. It's not written. But anyways, that's all I had to say. So I think overall Cat Noir deserves better. He doesn't deserve the treatment or the mistreatment that is happening to him. He is a very valuable partner, even if he makes mistakes, because he's come through in the clutch several times, but he does make dumb mistakes. Or mistakes that could have been avoided. And he has yet to just step up as a leader and establish boundaries with people. And he doesn't like conflict. So that's going to be a problem. And then he also doesn't deserve to be mistreated by Marinette and by Ladybug. But at the same token, he has to respect Ladybug's boundaries. He needs to stop leading Marinette on. And he needs to stop leading Kagami on. Like, just stand up and just tell these women that you're not feeling them. Or if he is feeling them, he needs to let them know. Instead of just having them just live in the realm of uncertainty. It's not cool. But thank you all so much for watching. Bye bye for now. Bye bye.